I am dining in. Are you?
Everyone, we're talking about session number 8, relapse prevention. I screwed up, so I talked too much. So relapse prevention is going to be familiar to you, so we're just going to do really fast through this, but we're going to get right to the slides here in a moment. Have fun. Slide number 5, 4 main concepts associated with relapse prevention are first and foremost that relapse is a gradual process with stages. And so we have to recognize those things as we go along. It's not that somebody wakes up one morning, they've been doing well, and all of a sudden they go, oh my gosh, I'm going to start eating sugar and flour today, all day, and I'm never going to stop. That's not how it works. We build to it, and there's some clues along the way. Recovery is the process of personal growth and development and developmental milestones. Hopefully that's what you've been finding with your weight loss. We're using some of the addiction terms about recovery because I think it is a recovery because our brains are recovering from constantly being inundated with sugar and flour over time. The main tools for relapse prevention are cognitive behavioral skills. And so we have to learn how to manage our body, our mind, our spirit. And we need to just understand the rules for relapse. So now I'm going to go on to slide number 6, talk a little bit about the stages of relapse in terms of gaining weight, starting to eat sugar and flour again, meaning that we're regressing back into some of our old behavior that got us to the point where we had to worry about losing weight. So we have to understand, again, it works gradually. Relapse really occurs months or weeks or months before we actually start to fall down the path. And so if people have been falling down the past week or so, it really started a few weeks ago where you started to have struggles with your stress, you had struggles with understanding your job, you had struggles with chaos, you had worries, whatever it was, and that was the precursor for you to start to fall off the wagon, so to speak, the past few days or weeks. Need to recognize that there's many early warning signs that we can overcome, and remember that habits, just like with habits, we have to stop the process early. If we let these things move into the full phase of a relapse, then what we're doing is we're going to have a harder time fixing that. But if we can see it starting to develop and say, nope, this is what I do. And so I really like the story of one of our people who had 2 kind of triggers for when her weight got above a certain amount. She said, okay, I got to watch it. I got to watch what I'm eating for the next few days. I got to pay attention. And once it hit that fail-safe time where it was above this, she said, next day I'm fasting right away. And I'm fasting until I get back down to my other weight. And those are good triggers for us to see those things start to climb back up, okay? Slide number 7, 3 stages of relapse, generally thought of as emotional, mental, and physical. During the emotional phase, people aren't thinking about using, so to speak, or going back to sugar or flour, old eating habits, but they may remember the past and they don't want to repeat it. It's kind of, that's an emotional issue, but their emotions and behaviors may be setting them up for a relapse in the future. They may not be controlling them as well or managing them as well. Denial is a big part of the issue because you are not using sugar and flour yet. So you say, oh, I'm doing a pretty good job, but maybe you're just sliding in, overeating here, or extending those exceptions a little bit here, and you're just starting to have a little bit of a slip back towards the old behavior. Now, when we go on to slide number 8 and kind of talk more about that emotional relapse, bottling up emotions. isolating and not going to class or not participating in the thing in your program, in your protocol, focusing on other people's problems and not your own, so not kind of caring for yourself, starting to develop poor eating habits or poor sleeping habits. But the common denominator of that emotional phase is really you start not taking care of yourself. And you know you're doing it, but you're not recognizing the symptoms. You may start to overconsume alcohol. You may start to show little things that aren't good signs for you. One of the things that we want people to think about is HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. When we start to see that emotion of HALT develop, that's kind of something that we really have to identify, because it's going to lead to those emotions coming up, and how our brain is going to want to deal with those emotions, as we've talked about multiple times, is our brain's going to want to say, hey, you know what? I need to eat because I can distract myself from those emotions. So when you start to feel restless, irritable, or discontent, then you're at risk. And I think that in the context of COVID-19 pandemic, we're all at risk right now for a relapse. Mental relapse is that war that's going on in your brain, where you're starting to have those conversations where part of your brain is saying, yeah, I really want to go back to sugar or flour. I really want to go back to eating breakfast every day. And the other part is saying, no, 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 don't go back. And so there's that battle being waged in your brain. And as we go deeper into this mental relapse, our cognitive resistance to relapse starts to diminish. And we start to be okay with it. We start to give into it a little bit. And we just have to understand that that's happening. So part of what helps us in this situation is that we've already allowed exceptions. And I think that that's on purpose. We've already said, I can have the food if I want it. I just have to do it in a specific way. It diminishes some of the energy, some of the urgency that we may feel with that mental battle going on, because our brain can say, you know what, I can have it and I'm going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I'm going to be on track. Okay. Slide number 11, a few signs of mental relapse: cravings for sugar and flour, overeating in general, thinking about people, places, or things that are connected to overeating, binge eating or desired foods. Oh, I really remember that binging, getting kind of excited about it. And you can see that sometimes with a person with alcohol, where they get their eyes light up when they start talking about alcohol, and they're like, whoa, and you can just see it. So minimizing the consequences of your past eating, kind of saying, oh yeah, that wasn't that bad, I wasn't really that overweight, or really didn't eat that badly, it was just metabolism, kind of doing those things, or glamorizing. Oh, don't you remember that great meal? That was so good. Oh, I love that. Bargaining with yourself, kind of a little, say, oh, I'll just have another exception, and it will be okay. And I'll start blocking out the rule of 24 hours. I'll just have the exceptions whenever I want them. Lying also can occur. Additionally, we on slide number 12, we're kind of starting to think of schemes about how you're going to control your eating. People with drinking do this all the time, where they say, oh, I'm going to control my drinking now. I've got it better under control. I'm not going to go to the bar. I'm just going to drink at home, or I'm going to drink beer instead of whatever. So we have to kind of start thinking about how we're negotiating with ourselves, looking for relapse opportunities, looking for ideas about where you can put yourself into a place where you're going to binge on sugar and flour. And you may actually come up with a plan for an overeating episode, and you start getting that emotion that comes from that. Again, we can thwart many of these things by having reasonable expectations, 24-hour rule, have to delay that gratification, all that stuff. Now, how do we deal with mental relapse? Going on to slide number 13. Recognize that the thoughts of overeating and binging are normal. This is a normal part of us. We don't have to get engaged in them. We don't have to get overwhelmed by them. That's a normal part of who we are. We're always going to remember different things from our life. We're going to get focused on those things at times. Plan for an exception, but follow the exception rule. 24-hour announcement, time-limited eating options, menu of options. But don't allow it to continue into the next day. And I think that that's one of the things that Stacy and I talked about with the Tuesday group on last night, is making sure that your exceptions really stay within that exception window, that they don't extend into the next day, because that becomes really, you're getting your meal here, your Chinese food, let's say, but you're not eating it all tonight because you're going to eat it again tomorrow. And that, no, throw away those leftovers. Get rid of that and say, nope, I'm done. I'm done with it. It's good. When exceptions do not work, remember to work on your thoughts and beliefs about food. What is your relationship with food? What is your plan long term? If you need to, do a thought download where you sit down for 10 minutes and write all your thoughts about your relationship with food and see whether they've started to drift back. And that can be a task that you can do from time to time. Number 14, we really want to define relapse or physical relapse into two parts. One is a lapse. That's where we experience an episode of eating sugar and flour that was outside an exception. We didn't plan for it. Okay, it's mindless eating, binge eating, overeating. Oftentimes this leads to emotional response, guilt, self-loathing, disgust, frustration. We want to limit those, because that emotion is just going to make it more likely that we slide back and say, oh, I'm a loser, I can't do this. We don't want to say that. We say, hey, this happened. It's okay. It's happened. I'm in it for the long haul. We're gonna do this the long way. It's okay. I don't want to make this a relapse. Just because I had one bad meal or I had ice cream at Culver's or whatever, it doesn't mean that I'm going to slide backwards. I had this one episode, now I'm right back on the horse the next day. Okay? So the next thing is slide number 15, physical relapse, meaning you're actually starting to use sugar and flour a lot. Practice those exceptions, meaning enjoyment eating, but getting back to your protocol the next day. Really kind of say, nope, getting back. Work on that delayed gratification. Really, really talk about your discipline. I can hold off on this. Practice getting back on your protocol. Really understand what's good for you. Practice throwing away the leftovers. That's really a critical thing. I'm not extending it the next day. Number 16, slide number 16. So again, we're starting that process of getting back in sugar. We're in a relapse. We have to start managing our thoughts and our beliefs, really getting those back in. Don't beat yourself up. No self-disgust. Remember that we're changing our habits. So the more we use new habits, the more they will help us get back on track. So really kind of find that focus, get back into the place. Be positive about this. Really make sure we're not perfect. Just do it. Slide number 17. We talk about different cognitive behavioral techniques. My problem is because of people. No, take responsibility for yourself. I don't think I can handle life without sugar or eating. Hey, you don't have to. You can do it, and you can have exceptions, but you can do it. Maybe I can eat sugar and flour occasionally. Yes, you can. And reduce that stress buildup of trying to, hold yourself back all the time. Life won't be fun with sugar and flour. Yeah, dining in is fun. Dining in gives you a good control. Number 18, really think about how, I'm worried it will turn into somebody I don't like if I don't eat sugar and flour. You are defining yourself as a person. You are awesome. You get to define yourself however you want. I can't change everything at once. The hell you can't. You can do a lot of things at once. My cravings will be overwhelming. We've already shown that you can handle the cravings. You have confidence. All or nothing thinking, catastrophizing. I'm going to leave those slides to you on number 19. What we learn from our setbacks. We learn we can deal with things. Now, I just want you to understand all of these things. Go through the remaining slides because I don't have time. And have good luck. Good luck dining in.